What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr Wargames, bringing an update to one of my favourite decks around, and that is of course Synchron's. So I've actually got a couple of different variants for this deck, which is why I love it so much. So if you want to see the other variant, which will involve the Bystials, then please make sure you smash that like button, hit the notification bell and subscribe. Getting the video above 50 likes will unlock that for you. And on top of that, I'll also bring you more combo videos and test time videos for the deck as well, because it does do so much, it's absolutely insane. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile and show you exactly what we've got. So of course you're going to start off with your main normal summon of the deck, and that is of course your junk Synchron. So obviously for those of you that do not know, when it is normal summon specifically, you get to target a level 2 or lower monster in the graveyard and special summon it. In defense, its effects are negated. Now its effects are only going to be negated while it's on the field, which is why you'll see people, when they synchro off using junk Synchron and stuff like Doppel Warrior and Converter, they'll still get the secondary effects. So I'm going to go through the tuners first and then show you the non-tuners, or like the pairs that they go with. So triple Stardust Synchron alongside one Jet, one Meh. I am playing the one Hop Ear Squadron. I just quite like the idea that even if my opponent turns off my board so that I can't Accel Synchron and go into Satellite Warrior or Baron, I still have the ability of using Hop Ear. Now, it's not a mandatory thing, you don't have to play this card at all. I just quite like that option, because even if I'm not going to go into a Baron, or if they stop part of my combo and I draw into the Hop Ear, it still gives me ways of getting into Accel, or it gives me ways of getting into a Mega, Stardust. Heck, I can even start working my way through to go into a Baron or a Satellite during my opponent's turn in other ways. So I thought it was kind of a cool option to kind of help me still continue to make plays and everything else. Now, the next tuner I'm not going to show you because it will come with like the rest of the engine. But so the non-tuners, of course, you do. They've got the Stardust Trowel, which goes to your Stardust. I'm still playing the Acasta Dawnwalker engine, which is the final tuner with the Ant Acasta. I did have the original 2-card combo, which was with the Necro Synchron and the Acasta, and this basically gave you a Baron before committing your 5 summons, so you had the negate to protect you from Nibiru. It also provided you with a negate to protect you from Junk Speeder being stopped at some points as well. I kind of went with a minimized version, because if you want to be adding in the Necro Synchron, to get the most out of it, you kind of want to be adding in either Evil Thorns, which can be a bit of a brick, or you want to be adding in a Spore as well. So for those of you unfamiliar with that, the reason that you play the Necro Synchron is because when it is used and sent to the graveyard as synchron material for a wind monster, you get to special summon a level 1 plant from your deck, which would either be Evil Form that contribute itself off, not only provide your opponent with burn damage, but also give you 2 more copies of itself, which are non-tuners that you can then use to synchro up. Or you would have Spore, which will be a level 1 tuner, and if you played more plants, you could banish the plants from the graveyard to bring this back, and you've kind of got like a loop in level 1. Now obviously that can only be used once per duel, but it was just an option. The other engine, this is where the Bystials will come into play, and that's kind of where you take out the Acastas. The reason I like it, even though that during your main combo, you're only playing 3 level 8s in the extra deck, you're going to be going through these. Like, it'd be very rare if you're not going into an Accel Synchron and then at least getting into your Stardust off of the back of that. Very, very rare. You can look at other stuff if you want to kind of change it up a little bit. If you don't have access to Accel, because I know it is like a £40 card right now, which is mental, you do have other options like your Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. Heck, you could even play the Draco Berserker of the 10 years as well to give you another aggressive level 8. Then, of course, we've got the non-tuner. So the non-tuner extenders continuing on. I've got the one just to Conflict and the one Calicrow. These are down to personal preference and if you want to play them or not. I know some people will take them out completely, absolutely fine. I still feel that they're both really good cards. The Jester I did have at 2, I've cut it down to 1. I'm still messing around with the ratios on these, but it's just a nice free level 1 extender, so that if your cards do get stopped, at least you're ending on a Herald, or you've got access to a Cupid Pitch, or you've got access to just these 2 gives you into a Speeder. So like if your opponent goes Imperm Vader or just DD Crows or stops the card coming back from the graveyard, you still have a Calicrow that can summon itself down with Junk Speeder and then sync and go Junk Synchron and then go into Speeder. So like there's different ways you can still play. And obviously Calicrow, because it's got 600 defense, can be searched off a Cupid Pitch, which is why we play both of those. And then, of course, your most important non-tuners, and that is, of course, your Doppel Warrior and your Junk Converters. Like, both of these are insanely powerful. The fact that Converter can get you into any of your tuner Synchrons, so it can get you into Jet, it can get you into Stardust, and it can get you into Junk. On top of that as well, if you wanted to, this is where I was playing other tuners before, and I've kind of messed around with ratios, changed it up. It could also get you into your Necro Synchrons, so you have more consistency for that. If you wanted to play Fleur Synchron, you could put this in here as well. And the benefit of playing this is if you could find space in the extra deck, is you could actually get into it via Overtake as well. And then the final one that I've only recently just cut is the Cyber Synchron. Like, when you had the Chaos Dragon, and I really hope that one day that comes back, and more so for this deck than anything else. I don't want to see it in Dragon Link, and it card is broken, like it had to be banned. But it would have been nice for it to come back with an errata or something else, just so that it gives you access to Abyss as well. And then the final card, which you can count as a tuner if you're ever going to summon it, is Ash Blossom. So with this build, it's entirely up to you. You can go very gas orientated, which means you don't play any hand traps. You then need to balance whether you're going to go, right, you know what, I'm going to go second no matter what. So my space of 6 to 7, maybe even 8 cards will be board breakers. Or you're going to go with a balance of, right, well, if I go first, I've got cards that can help me utilize and build my board. Or I've got cards that can help me stop my opponent playing. So I've got that balance of going first and second. That's obviously where the Bystials come into play, because if you're taking away 4 cards straight away with the Acastrum Fire Ant, not only does that then give you a very good kind of, it gives you a back row card, which is something I think this deck lacks, but it also gives you, you know, a nice kind of extensions and disruptions during your opponent's turn. The reason it's not in this particular build is I still quite like the Ant Caster and Dawnwalker, and I'm still playing around with it, and you can see we've got a very high chunk of monsters. You could, if you wanted to, play Desires in the deck, but again, you've got a lot of one-offs, and to be fair, the reason you're playing 3 of these monsters is you will actually go through them all. Like, Stardust, you'll definitely be going through 2 at the very least in most games. Junk Synchron, you can very easily go through 3 of them, and then your Converters are just there as consistency cards. Like I said, they basically count as the 4th, 5th, and 6th copy of most of your Synchron monsters. I'm still playing On Your Mark. Now, I was like highly considering like just getting rid of this completely because it's one of the cards that you have to open it when you have no other cards. But it's also one of the ones that if you open it with no other cards, it pretty much gets you everything you need. So this is the other card that could also get you your Necro Synchron. So when it is activated, if you control no other cards, you get to add a Synchron monster from your deck to the hand. Once per turn during your standby phase, annoying, it should have been either player's standby phase, you put a signal counter on this card. You can remove 2 signal counters from the field and send this face-up card to the graveyard to draw 2 cards and send 1 card from your hand to the grave. Now, obviously, that effect's kind of cool, but it just takes so much time to build it up. I did consider putting Magician's Souls in the deck, just because it was another way of going, okay, cool, Magician's Soul, like, activate this, search, Magician's Souls, get rid of these. Like, in my opinion, these are like dead cards after you put a single card on the board. Like, unless your opponent completely clears it off, it's pretty much a dead card. But it's still very, very good and very, very important in order to get you to your starters as early as you possibly can, because you're also playing triple tuning and, of course, triple overtake, which pretty much do the exact same job. So you've got 9 cards. The consistency of this deck is near max capacity. Like, the fact you've got these 9 cards and those 9 cards can get you to your Stardust, your Synchron, everything else. The only thing this deck is missing is like a true 1-card combo, ignoring any luck whatsoever that can get you going. Obviously, tuning can technically be a 1-card combo if the mill is correct. So there's a lot you have to kind of consider for that. For the board breakers, or like being able to control my opponent's board a bit more, I went with Book of Eclipses and Talents. These can very easily be Kaijus if you want them to be. This is like, in regards to disrupting my opponent at the moment, apart from all the cards that are just going to go full on gas, my kind of cards that can balance going first, going second, and just involve some form of interruption without me having a built board is Eclipse, Talons, and Ash. Now, obviously, I've seen people put in stuff like Nibiru. I feel most players are playing around Nibiru. You can get lucky if they get a little bit lazy and they don't consider playing around it turn 1 or game 1. And then you go, cool, Nibiru, let's go and build off of there. The best thing about Nibiru as well is it does give you a free monster on the board. But the issue is the level of that monster is so weird that it doesn't actually help most of your plays. It's very, very tricky unless you're going to play something like the Psychic End Punisher to kind of deal with it and get it off the board. And then the final cards are just one-off power cards. In a sense, you got Call By to deal with some of the hand traps that are going to cause you issues. You could play something like Call cross out if you wanted to, but then when you're playing cross out, that's when you need to take out the caster engine. That's 4 cards, so that's your imperms and 2 cross outs at the moment, and then you'd start considering what you're going to drop from the rest of this. Foolish Burial, obviously insanely good, being able to set up your junk synchron target. It can also help you kind of foolish any other piece that you might need, like a level 2 for your Axel synchron to bring back. It can also Foolish Burial Trail in order to help you out with the Stardust play. You can even Foolish Burial the Stardust, so plenty of options on that one. Reinforce with the army. Funnily enough, Junk Synchron is actually a warrior. I thought it could have been more like a machine, but you know, you got Junk Synchron, which is your warrior, which is a very good search out, and then it also gives you capabilities in order to get to your Junk Converter and of course your Doppel Warrior. So your 3 probably most important cards in the deck. This card is searching. And then the last card is Stardust Illumination. So really good because it allows you to either level manipulate one of your Stardust monsters, which can help you get into Baron a little bit earlier, or it can also be used as a Foolish Burial to send the Stardust Trail from deck to grave, which is probably what you're going to use. Well, it can do both of those effects, but you can also get the additional effect that if you have a Stardust monster on the board, or I believe it's specifically... yeah, if you control Stardust Dragon specifically, or a Synchron monster that lists it, which is obviously what you're going to get with the new Axel and of course Stardust itself, you can actually special summon Trail from the deck rather than Foolish Burying it. So you've got 2 options there. Moving on to the extra deck, pretty straightforward on this one. So if you tend, you've got Baron and you've got Satellite Warrior, so you've got your Defender, your Aggressor. The reason you go with Satellite Warrior over something like Sovereign from Sword Souls is you can actually summon this during your opponent's turn very easily off of Axel, and I've got double ways of doing this because I also have access to the Hoppe Squadron. And when you're doing that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get, on average, 3 pops off the back of this, making it a 5500 boss monster, so really, really good. For your 8s, of course, we've got Omega, which can help you recycle your Trail and your Stardust, as well as also being able to rip one from your opponent's hand. So if they're burning hand traps on you already, and you're able to keep playing and keep playing and keep playing, you can make Omega, regain some resource, and then Omega rip one from their hand. Obviously, it's a game of luck because you could rip an absolutely useless card for them, or you could rip their most important card that's going to be able to help them break their board. The brand new inclusion of the Axel Synchro Dragon. This card's absolutely nuts for this deck. The best thing about Synchrons is they've already got new support confirmed, and I can't wait till we officially get it in the TCG. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this deck continues to adapt when we get it. Because of Axel, we are now also playing Stardust. You don't have to play it, but I still think it's actually a really good card to be playing. Yes, its Tribute to Destruction protection effect is really, really good, but it also just gives you a bit more advantage off of the back of the Axel as well, and making it indestructible is very, very important. The one Yazi, so the Yazi comes off the back of the Mare play, and I think there's a really cool play with that. So shout out to 037 Wolf, who obviously is the Synchro master in regards to stuff like this, but there's a cool thing where you make Baron, and then you pop your Yazi with the Baron, summon out your Mare, and then obviously off of the back of the Mare, you're going to be spawning non-tuner tokens. So it basically does, in theory, the same type of play that the Evil Form one does, but you only need to play 1 brick in the form of Mare rather than 2 additional bricks or 3 additional bricks of the Evil Form. So it really depends on your play style, but I thought it was a really kind of cool combo that let you kind of minimize your options. Stardust Charge Warrior, so you're either playing Charge Warrior or you're playing Coral Dragon. More times than not, you're playing Charge Warrior because of the non-tuner aspect of it. But then if you're like, yo, every time I'm playing testing, I'm always missing a tuner, you shouldn't be, sometimes you do, then you want to swap that up. Junk Speeder, keep in mind as well that this is a wind, so if you were to use Necro Synchron on it as well, because it's a wind, you would still be able to trigger that effect, and then that's how you'd get Spore, because Spore would then be your tuner. Same with Speeder as well. So you've got Speeder, a Liberian, Junk Warrior. Like, I'm so glad that this got an alt art, but I'm also disappointed that you have to play this, and it doesn't really have applications, I suppose, to the deck. And what I mean by that is the only reason you're playing it is because it lists Junk Synchron in its text. I get it because obviously it's part of Yusei's deck. It's his ace monster that he kept going to, but the only reason that you play it in the modern game or in the particular day is because it lists Junk Synchron, which means Overtake can special summon Junk Synchron or add it. I would like to have been a bit more effective so that you could actually, like, there was actually a reason for summoning it, but I guarantee you 9 out of 10 when you play this deck, you'll go through all of the other 14 Synchros, you'll actually summon them before you summon out a Junk Warrior. Then of course you've got your Axel Synchron, pretty standard on that one. Cupid Pitch, I still quite like this card. I feel that because I'm playing Hop here, it gives me more of a reason to play it. But it's just one of them ones where you get another tuner on the board, you've got burn damage or life manipulation. So even if you do, like this deck can combo off for absolutely ages. If you wanted to, you could try and find ways of putting Earths in here, like Naturias in here, trying to get into Barkions and Nat Beasts. But ultimately, the deck like this is pretty much, here is all of my cards on the board. If you break it, you're probably going to win, like the grind game. But if you don't break it, I'm going to be able to OTK the next turn. And you're going to draw so much resource off the Hyper Librarian. It's kind of why I want to put the Bystials in more, because then it still gives me boss monsters that even if I've gone through my extra deck, I still have boss monsters that can help me recycle, recur, and interrupt my opponent. Herald of Artlight, pretty straightforward and simple on that one. And then Metal Marcher. Again, relatively straightforward on this one. There's not really anything too major you need to worry about that. And then the final one is obviously your Double Star Shaman. Extra decks for a deck like this is pretty cookie cutter. It's rare, like you'll get the odd one where Cupid Pitch might come in, might come out. People may play Stardust, they may not. They may play the Yazi lot, they might not. They might play Omega, they might not. But Speeder is a staple. Baron, if you have it, is a staple. If you don't, you've got Satellite Warrior. Crystal Wing is something you would consider putting in here. It's just not as easy to get to. Like your level 8 you're going to be going to is going to be your Axel. And then the only way you get into Crystal Wing is you go with Speeder plus your Junk Synchron off of the back of summoning it. Whereas now, because of the Stardust and then Illumination and everything like that, you can actually use Illumination to adapt the Stardust level, and then you go that plus Speeder and goes into Baron. So you're basically going to a stronger Omni-Negate than Crystal Wing, but it's entirely up to you on how you play it. If you don't have access to Baron, then of course Crystal Wing is your next best alternative in order to give you that kind of protection from something like a Nibiru. Obviously it's not going to protect you from everything else, like evenly matches, Book of Eclipses, you name it, but it is just something that you need to kind of consider and be aware of depending on what you have access to. And that's pretty much it for the deck. I really do like decks like this that are quite like branded. And what I mean by that is branded are very, they're mono in what they let you summon. Like this deck, if you wanted to, would let you play Link monsters, but then you lose probably your best Synchro monster in the form of your Junk Speeder. Whereas with branded as well, branded lock you into fusions unless you don't want to use branded fusion, which would be absolutely insanely crazy. But that's what I like about this deck. That's what I feel that even though it is just synchro oriented, you can only really play this deck using synchros. You can't have link monsters or anything like that. It's very, very good. And because we have so many good different synchro options, you do have different ways of playing it. Like I remember the first kind of build I played a lot of bricks actually, but it was still very, very good. Is you could play the Majestic Star Dragon. There's a build that Joe has put together, which basically goes through like 3 of the Stardust Warriors, which is absolutely insane as well. You can mix it with the Rika Sun Avalons, and what I mean by that is that's where your Necro Synchro comes into play. You've got the Fleurs, which is more plant-based. It's just really kind of cool how this can be adaptive, and it's a massive shout out to the 5Ds. Like when you're looking at stuff like Rose Dragons that are now playable, you've got Blackwings that had a massive round of support, and obviously Synchrons themselves. Not to mention that we've also got brand new confirmed Red Dragon Archfiend support coming out, or structure deck, so to speak. So it'll be awesome to see if that is going to be mono. And what I mean by that is it's going to focus only on Red Dragon Archfiends so that they will help you make Red Dragon Archfiends. It won't be cards that you can adapt into a deck like this. But if they do get a generic card that can go into Blackwings, that can go into Rose Dragons, can also go into Synchrons, then that would be absolutely amazing. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope it's shown you a little bit more about the deck. Like I said at the start, if you want to see the Bysteel version, if you want to see more test stands, if you want to see more combos, then by smashing that like button and giving it above 50 likes shows me that you want to see more of this, and I'll be more than happy to bring it to you. Because like I said, Synchrons, Heroes, Dark Magician, like if I could pick a deck from each of the generations of Yu-Gi-Oh, these are kind of the ones that stand out the most to me personally. Very, very fun, very, very cool, and I can't wait to do more. So thank you so much for watching. As absolutely always, guys, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.